Sutra 5. Yat prapya na kinchit vanchati na sochati na dveshti na ramate notsahi bhavati. After attaining devotion, a devotee has no desire for anything. He does not grieve or hate, nor does he delight in anything, and he does not feel encouraged to do anything else. In the modern age, people do not understand the real essence of devotion. They consider everything from a perspective of worldly desire. In simple terms, one who is completely absorbed in I has no place for you. Every time a person prays and asks the Lord for something material in return, his I sense becomes very pronounced. Therefore, removing this I is the first goal one should strive for. His I becomes everything to him. The Lord becomes secondary to his ego. The ego creates a major problem because it separates devotees from him. It builds a boundary around them, making them selfish, and they have no desire to share what they have with anyone. One who is egotistical and egocentric cannot relate to others or communicate well. A genuine attempt in devotional practice removes the ego consciousness. This is not easy to put into practice, but it becomes easier if one develops a deep yearning for Krishna and understands his position as the Lord's eternal servant. The search for the Lord should bring relief from all pain and unhappiness. One should not assume that the spiritual aspirant suffers no problems in life. This is an unrealistic notion. One may feel that just because one pursues the Lord, he should remove all obstacles from the spiritual path. The Lord can certainly do this, but if he did, man would not develop strength. A muscle is made stronger by use alone. An inactive arm hanging lifelessly to one side becomes weak and withered. If a person wants to build his weak muscles, he has to use them regularly. Similarly, an aspirant needs to practice devotion and use his inactive muscles of faith, compassion, dedication, patience, and devotion to strengthen all these undeveloped qualities in him. Without this dedicated practice, he will not change and overcome his human weaknesses and limitations. In the Bhagavad Gita 12.17, Lord Krishna states, "One who neither rejoices nor hates, who neither grieves nor yearns, who renounces both sin and piety, and who has devotion for me, is dear to me." Sage Narad speaks of the same Bhagavad Gita verse in his 5th aphorism. Lord Krishna is revealing the quality of those devotees whom he dearly loves. When an aspirant attains devotion, his heart will not crave anything else. He will find complete contentment and satisfaction in the Lord. Such a man has only one prayer, that he be deluded no more by this material world. The Lord's personal qualities are so sweet that he attracts everyone. Sages and people who have attained constant experience of the bliss of the soul lovingly serve the Lord without any motive but to give him pleasure. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.7.10. In this aphorism, the first point is, after attaining devotion. Devotion can be attained in 3 ways. 1. By heritage, birth into a practicing family. 2. By blessings or association of saints, godly persons, or devotees. 3. By practicing devotion to purify one's heart, making way for devotion to blossom within. The second point is, a devotee has no desire for anything. Desires come from feelings of incompleteness, and grief arises when there is a loss of something one holds dear. For the person who has realized the truth, there is nothing more to be desired. He does not grieve because this devotion cannot be lost or taken away from him. Even if the devotee has to lose many things in the world, such as his family, friends, and eventually his body, he will be unaffected by this, because these things are nothing in comparison to what he has acquired. And so there is no grief. The devotee is eternally satisfied. Patanjali states, a person of discriminating intelligence understands that everything in the material world is a source of pain, because even one's own thoughts result in suffering as a consequence of loss of happiness, anticipation of loss of happiness, or desire for happiness. Even worldly joy is rooted in sorrow, for misery is both the cause of pleasure and its consequence. A man can expect to be free from the misery of loss, desire, ignorance, and ego only after attaining devotion. Such a person is beyond both pleasure and pain, which arises from merit and demerit. Obstacles to the attainment of objects one desires become the cause of hatred in one's mind. The Yoga Sutra 2.8 states, hate is always directed towards an object or person by whom one has been hurt or injured. Vyasadeva comments on this verse. It is the very nature of anger to get rid of such an offending object or person. Hate is one of the main obstacles in devotional life, though it can be removed by devotional practice. It is an impediment because a person who hates someone keeps that person in his or her thoughts constantly. A person actually loves his enemy more than his friend, because the mind is focused on the enemy all the time. Much of one's energy is diverted towards animosity. Unfortunately, in human life, hatred penetrates the deeper levels within, more so than love. On the contrary, good thoughts make a devotee peaceful, balanced, happy, and joyous. Often, a beginner on the devotional path weakens himself by reacting to events that are beyond his control, and events which do not always have a favorable outcome. One must develop the determination that uncontrollable situations will not cause emotional disturbances, and one needs to develop a consciousness whereby his actions will not hurt or harm others. When an aspirant grieves due to worldly misfortune, he experiences pain and misery, but when he chants the holy name, he revels in joy. And this blissful feeling takes him away from all the hate and miseries, ultimately connecting him to the Lord. Because he does not have any hostility towards anyone, he sees only the Lord's hand in everything. And he also witnesses that the Lord resides in all beings. If a devotee hates, it will be equal to hating the Lord himself. Everything that comes to the devotee is only a token of his love, and regarded with such feeling, it is always welcomed by the devotee. Therefore, the devotee cannot hate when he does not bear any resentment towards anyone. Furthermore, he does not rejoice over anything. One rejoices when some desire is satisfied, or when pain or problems are removed. Such joys are temporary. The Katha Upanishad 2.12 states, upon attaining the self-effulgent Lord, the wise relinquish all mundane joy and sorrow. When a devotee attains devotion, nothing else can give him that feeling of bliss. The devotee is always immersed in joy, in which the ego is completely absent. Lastly, the devotee does not have any urges. He who desires nothing for himself, who is wise, who is pure in mind, heart and body, who is undistracted and impartial, who is free from ego, and who has devotion for me, is very dear to me. Bhagavad Gita 12.16. Material desires can never be completely satisfied, because one desire leads to another. For example, a husband and wife build a home on a limited amount of income. They are happy with their beautiful house, but they do not have money to furnish the interior. There is a desire to buy furnishings, and soon they develop desire after desire. For example, to acquire more items. Once they have a family, they start to save money for their children's education and welfare, and so forth. Eventually, one is caught in the snare of desires, and there is no end in sight. But a devotee who attains the Lord feels no urge to acquire material possessions. Naturally, one may inquire about the purpose of this life. The higher practices of the devotional path may appear cold, but the absence of desire in a devotee does not imply that he is lifeless. The devotee is completely full and satisfied. When a pitcher is immersed in the ocean, it fills with water and is surrounded by water. When the filled pitcher reaches the bottom of the ocean, it becomes stable. It is not possible to imagine any movement within this pitcher. In other words, a flow of water to a space where water is absent, because it is full inside and out. If the pitcher is half full, it will float on the surface, and the unpredictable waves of the ocean will carry the pitcher away. And so, a devotee who is drowning in the love of the Lord becomes completely stable, and thus he remains undistracted by material desires, which are like the turbulent waves of the ocean. For this reason, he does not crave for anything. When a devotee does not wish for anything, it means he does not want for himself. He does not grieve for personal loss, and at the same time, he does not enjoy or feel elated through any personal gain. It is not that the devotee invariably becomes inert like a stone. On the contrary, he serves for the sake of others, remaining free from selfishness.